Hello everyone. Tonight's lesson is going to have us dividing multi-digit numbers by a one-digit divisor using an area model. That's going to be doing something like 3,456 divided by 5. There's some things that we need to talk about to make sure that we can do that. The first thing we need to remember is what is a compatible basic fact and how is that going to help us in division. Well, if you were to look at this number, the very first compatible basic fact that you could see is going to be right here, right around 34. That's going to help us get to our answer. So, a compatible basic fact that can help us would be 30 divided by 5. Now, we're going to take these ideas that we've already talked about and we've already learned, which I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of those for now, and combine that with the area model that we learned in multiplication to help us solve this really big number. So, let's get started. The first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to remember what area is. Area is when you take two numbers, a length and a width, and you multiply them to get what's in the middle. So the middle of this area is 3,456. We know it's inside our area. And we know that we want to multiply by 5 to get there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take chunks at a time out of this rectangle until I get to my main number. So what I'm going to want to do next is I'm going to want to write my main number here on the side, which is 3,456. And for now, I'm going to erase it from my middle. And I'm going to continue to think about how I'm going to take my first chunk out. So my first chunk is going to go with that compatible basic fact that we talked about. Now, what times 5 will give me a number that's pretty big, a big chunk out of here? And I know that if I take my 34 and I make it a 30, because I know what 30 divided by 5 is, I know that 30 divided by 5 equals 6. But this is not really 30. It actually has two other digits behind it. We have to make sure that we keep our place value. So I'm going to go ahead and use my very first idea of the number 3,000. Now, if I take out a huge chunk of this, 3,000, I know that 6 times 5 is not 3,000, but 600 times 5 is 3,000. So I already have my first big chunk taken out. So now what do I have left? I'm going to subtract my 3,000 because I've already put that in my area model, and I'm going to have how much left? 456. Now, if I look at 456 and I'm going to think about dividing 456 by 5, I know that my 45 is my basic fact. So 5 times what equals 45, but it's not really 45, it's 450. Because remember, I need to remember that place value, and I'm not really going to deal with that 6 yet. So how many times will that go? It'll go 9 times. But 9 times 5 is 45, not 450, so I can't forget to add my 0. So 5 times 90 is 450. So I'm going to subtract now 450. And that's going to leave me 6, which I can divide 6 up here too, right? 5 will go into 6 one time. So 5 times 1 is going to be 5, right? And so when I subtract that, and I'm running out of room, so I'm going to bring that 6 up right up here. I'm just going to bring it up so I have more room so you can see it. And I subtract the 5, it's going to give me 1, which is my remainder. So I know that I'm going to have 1 left over that I cannot divide by 5. But what was my quotient? What does it equal? Well, if you'll remember, I did 600 first, so 600 is part of it. And then I did 90, so I'm going to add those two together. And then I did 1, so I'm going to add that together, which gives me a quotient of 691 with the remainder of 1. And that's my answer. Let's go ahead and let's look at the page that you have. I'm going to do 2 more problems with you, and then you're going to finish the rest on your own. So let's look at problem A. Okay, You're going to be working this problem with me on your page. So there's a square for you to be writing in. I want you to solve it with me. If you have to press pause if I go too fast. I know I talk fast. I'm sorry. And you're going to notice that I wrote this problem a little bit differently than what's in the book because I want you to be able to see it this way because eventually we're going to be working these problems out using this symbol as division instead of the one that you see in your book. And I've also drawn the area model to show you that we know what the area of this rectangle is. It's 378. We're just looking for the products that are the product that goes with 2 to equal 378. So let's begin. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a chunk of that out. So I'm going to draw myself a little rectangle. And I'm going to think 2 times what will get me close to that first number? Well, if I want to think of just my hundreds, I know that if I do 2 times 100, that'll get me 200, correct? So now I'm going to take 378, I'm going to write it over here, and I'm going to say, okay, I've taken a big chunk of that out. I've taken away 200. And that leaves me with what left? That leaves me 178 I have to deal with. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to think of what can I do now? If I have 178, and I'm going to draw a whole nother area model, so I can take another chunk of it out. What can I do? Well, I can't take 100 by 2. I mean, I could. It's pretty simple. But I'm going to go a little bit bigger. I'm going to try 17. What basic fact will get me close to 17? Well, I know 2 times 8 is 16, right? But I want to get bigger. And I know this 17 is really 17 tens. So if this is going to be 17 tens, I'm going to do 160 now, which means that 8 is not 8, it's 80. So now I'm going to subtract my 160, and that is going to make me have 18 left. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my very last area, and my very last area is going to be 2, and I know 18 is an even number. What times 2 will equal 18? It's 9. And I have nothing left. So now I know that I just need to take all my areas and put them together. So I have 100 plus 80 plus 9. So 2 times 189 equals 378. I'm going to multiply that to check my answer. It's always good to multiply to check a division problem. So I'm going to say 300. Nope, I'm sorry. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say 189 times 2. 9 times 2, 18. Carry my 1. 8 times 2 is 9. I'm sorry, 8 times 2 is 16, plus 1 is 17, carry my 1. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 378, and bam, I got it correct. All right, let's look at B. Okay, 795 divided by 3. I'm going to look for my first compatible fact. My first fact I'm going to look for to divide this up is going to be, I'm going to try and figure out what a chunk is right here. And I'm going to look at my hundreds, right? So I'm going to focus on my hundreds first. And I know I have 700s. Can I take a chunk out of 700 using a compatible number? Yes, because I know that there's 2 numbers that I can do to get close to 7 when I'm multiplying by 3. I know that 3 times 2 equals 6. And that 3 times 3 equals 9. And 7 is going to be with that 6 right there. I don't want to go beyond it. I want to stay before it, so it's getting close without going over. So 3 times 2 is 6, but I'm not really dealing with 6. I'm dealing with 600, which means I'm going to be multiplying 200. So now I have an area here. I'm going to go ahead and draw it so I can keep up. That's my 200. And I started with 795. And I found that part of that is 600. So I took a big chunk out. How much do I have left? What's left over here if this entire thing is worth 795? Let's subtract to find out. I only have 195 left. So now, if I'm going to divide by 3, I'm going to find a compatible fact. And that number that I'm going to be looking for is 19. Now, how can I get close to 19 without going over when multiplying by 3? 3 times what? Well, I know 3 times 5 equals 15. 3 times 6 equals 18. And 3 times 7 equals 21. Okay, that goes over. I don't want to use that. 15 is a good number, but 18 is better. So here's the compatible fact I'm going to use. Now, I have to remember, the 19 that I'm dealing with is not 19 ones. It's 19 tens. So when I multiply this 3 times 6 to get 18, I'm really not talking about 18 ones. I'm talking about 18 tens. So I'm going to add my zeros. So 3 times 60 is 180. Now I'm going to subtract my 180 to find out how much I have left. So 195 minus 180, see what chunk I have left, is going to be 15 is left. So now I've taken out this chunk right here, which is 180. So I've taken out 600. I've taken out 180 by multiplying 3 times 60, and now I only have 15. That's a basic fact. 3 times 5 equals 15. And if I add up all of these numbers, they will equal 795. And I know I need to add up all these numbers to tell what that goes into, which is 265. Now, what's the best thing to do to see if you have a right answer? Multiply to check. So let's go ahead and do that. 265 times 3. I should get 795 as my answer. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry my 1. 3 times 6 is 18. Plus the 1 is 19. Sounds so familiar. And 2 times 3 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. So it's 795. We're going to solve this problem one more time in a different way. Let's do that next. Okay, let's say that I did not know my basic facts. So I'm just going to start guessing at what I can do. I can guess as many times as I want. So if I say 3 times 100 equals 300, I can take out a whole nother chunk. As long as I take 795 and I subtract 300 from it to know how much I have left, it doesn't matter how many times I do that. So I know that I have 495 left that I'm going to divide by 3. So I'm going to take out another 100 chunk, which is another 300. So I'm going to subtract 300 again. Now, I can't take out another 100, and I'm not really comfortable with my basic facts. So now I'm just going to take out 10, because I know 10 times 3 is 30. And I have to subtract my chunks every single time, which leaves me with 165. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that I have another nice chunk that I can take out. And I see that I have 165. So I'm going to look for compatible fact. I'm not really seeing anything I know yet. So I'm going to go ahead and take out another 10. 10 times 3 is 30. So I'm going to subtract 30. And that's going to leave me with 135. So you can see this is a little bit longer of a way, but if you're comfortable with these facts, that may be what you need to do at first until you get better at your basic compatible numbers. Now, I know that 13 is really close to 12. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and say that 3 times 4 is 12. But I'm not dealing with 13 ones because this is the ones place is being held. I'm dealing with 13 tens. So this is going to be 120 and that's going to be 40. Now I'm getting a lot closer to where I want to go. I'm taking out bigger chunks. 135 minus 120 is 15, which we've already said. I have to make another little area model here because I ran out of room. 3 times 5 is 15. Now all I'll have to do is add up all my chunks. I have 100 plus another 100 is 200 plus 2 tens is 20 plus 40 would give me 200 plus 20 plus 40 is 260 plus 5, which is 265. Now, that took a long time, and this is definitely not the most efficient way, but if you really can't find those compatible numbers, take out small chunks until you get to the end. It will get you the right answer. Okay, so now, on your own, you're going to do C, D, E, F, do the best you can using the area model, bring it back to share with your group. Have fun.